Gordon and the Famous Visitor is the 4th episode of the 3rd series, based on the story Domeless Engines from the Railway series book, Duck and the Diesel Engine. This is another one of those episodes that I rewatched a lot when I was a kid from watching the VHS tape. And I'll go into the details of why after I go through the story real quick. It is an important day at the yard as a special visitor named City of Truro has arrived and is now the centre of attention, with many people taking photographs and making notes. Duck explains to Thomas and Percy that the City of Truro is a celebrity, a very famous engine, and they will have the chance to talk to him later. Thomas, however, believes that City of Truro is too famous to want to talk to them. Most of the engines are very pleased about the visitor, but Gordon thinks that it's a lot of fuss about nothing. The other engines are happy to find that the City of Truro is quite friendly and he enjoys talking to them well into the night. Early the next morning, City of Truro heads back to his own railway, and Thomas tells Gordon that the engine is famous since he was the first to go over 100 miles an hour. Gordon tells Thomas that City of Truro has no dome and that domeless engines are not trustworthy or have no respect as far as he is concerned. He also claims that 100 miles an hour would be easy for him to achieve. Later that day, Duck is taking some trucks to Wellsworth and tells Edward what Gordon said about the visitor. Edward tells Duck to take no notice of Gordon and assures him that he's just jealous because he thinks that no engine should be famous besides him. Moments later, Gordon thunders past the 2 engines on the main line with his wheels pounding the rails, and he disappears through the station determined to go as fast as the visitor. Duck watches and jokingly tells Edward that Gordon will knock himself to bits. Further along the line, Gordon begins to feel something loose at the top of his boiler. He decides to slow down, but it's already too late. He meets a teasing wind which blows in very hard puffs on the viaduct. Not a gentle or hard steady one. The wind creeps under Gordon's loose dome, lifts it off and sends it flying away into the valley below. Without Gordon's dome, he is most uncomfortable with the wind whistling through the hole where it should be and feels silly and embarrassed without it. And to make matters worse for him, the trucks laugh at him when he reaches Knapford. He tries to shoo them away by wishing steam at them, but nothing he does works as they crowd around him. On the journey home, Gordon wants his driver to find his dome. However, he says that it is too late to find it now and Gordon will have to go to the works for a new one. Gordon is most upset and hopes that the sheds are going to be empty tonight when he gets home, but all the engines are there waiting for him. As Gordon turns around on the turntable, he hears a voice saying,
"Never trust domeless engines, they aren't respectable."
This episode marks the first time a real-life engine appears in the TV series, that being the famous City of Truro. Built in 1903 for the Great Western Railway at Swindon Works, to a design by George Jackson Churchward. Truro is one of the most famous locomotives in the world, as well as being the most famous for the GWR. And City of Truro must have had a huge impact on the crew of the Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends production, especially in the hit era, since he popped up occasionally in the hit era and the CGI era, in picture and book form. That just shows how much each production team who worked on the show really loved City of Truro as an engine.
Ah, who cares? A lot of fuss about nothing if you ask me.
Yeah, no one's asking you though, are they?
And having Gordon be jealous of him really does make sense for this episode, and for railway continuity in general, especially with this exchange between him and Thomas about Truro.
Good riddance, he grumbled. Chattering all night. Who is he anyway? Doc told you, replied Thomas. He's famous. As famous as me? Nonsense. He's famouser than you. He went 100 miles an hour before you were even thought of. So he says. Off Gordon.
Now this actually makes sense for Gordon to be the one to question City of Truro's record-breaking attempt, since he's based on the same type of locomotive the Flying Scotsman is. Since City of Truro is believed to have broken the 100 mile an hour speed barrier for steam railways in 1904, the year after it was introduced, while the Flying Scotsman was officially recorded reaching 100 miles an hour on the 30th of November 1934. And it made sense at the time for them to use this argument in the Railway series, and as well as the episode, because this debate has been going on ever since Flying Scotsman broke the record, with some railway fanatics believing that the City of Truro did it first, and other railway fanatics believing that the Flying Scotsman did it first because her record attempt was officially recorded. And there's 3 sides to the argument. Those that believe that Truro did it first, those that believe the Flying Scotsman did it first, and then there's those like myself who don't really care for the argument and just accepts the fact that both engines achieved the record. Now I've watched quite a few railway documentaries about Great British locomotives when I was a kid, and a number of them talked about the City of Truro's 100 mile an hour record breaking attempt, and the Flying Scotsman's one as well. So I'm one of those types of people who accepts that both engines broke the world speed record for steam and reached 100 miles an hour, with the City of Truro being the first one to do it, and the Flying Scotsman to be the first one to be officially recorded doing it. And since Gordon is based off of the Flying Scotsman's class, it made sense for him to be the one to be jealous of City of Truro. It just plays on the real-life rivalry between the GWR and the LNER.
I never boast, but I'd say 100 miles an hour would be easy for me.
And when you look at it from a certain point of view, this episode introduces another form of racism for the island of Sodor. The first official one was the rivalry between the steam engines and the diesel engines, and this one shows Gordon being prejudiced against engines that don't have domes, like Truro.
I didn't like his looks. He's got no dome. Never trust domeless engines. They're not respectable.
We all know that it's not right by any means to promote racism or bias, whatever your ethnic background, but the thing about domeless engines is played more for Gordon's jealousy of anything else. And it's a little nod to the rivalry between the Big Four back in the days. And I love how it's further implied by Edward's exchange with Duck at the station.
Take no notice, soothed Edward. He's just jealous. He thinks no engine should be famous but him.
That little bit of dialogue is just very fitting for Gordon, since he feels himself to be the most important engine on the island. So of course he'd feel jealous of another famous engine being around, since he feels he's the only famous engine that matters. This is another episode that I used to rewatch a lot as a kid on the VHS tapes, because I found it one of the most entertaining episodes for me since it was Gordon-centered. And Gordon has always been one of my favourite characters in the TV series. I used to have an Ertl model of Gordon that I used to take everywhere with me. And it's another one of those episodes I used to recreate endlessly with my Ertl models and wooden railway models. It's another fun episode where Gordon gets boastful and gets his comeuppance afterwards. It's further proof that karma is a real bitch. And the scene of Gordon losing his dome and getting laughed at by the trucks gets me every time. It's just another one of those funny moments where you get to hear the truck's funny monkey giggle. And I'm a huge sucker for the Troublesome Trucks' classic series laugh. As I've said last year, it always sounded like giggling monkeys to me, just because of the high-pitched voices. I also love the brand new version of Gordon's theme that was introduced in this episode. Sounding pretty much like the original theme was in Series 1 and 2, but making it sound more grander with the new instruments they were able to use this year. It's just a huge improvement from the previous version of the theme, getting to use more instruments than what they had back in the 80s, and making it sound grander and epic. And it's more proof of Mike O'Donnell and Junior Campbell upping their game in the music department. And I suppose it's pointless to talk about this episode without bringing up a continuity error. The fact that Devious Diesel is at the sheds when everyone's admiring City of Truro at the beginning. Now in continuity this doesn't make sense because Diesel was sent packing back in Series 2. So why would he be allowed to come back to the island all of a sudden during City of Truro's visit? Although I guess you could make the argument that it was probably just another shunter Diesel of the same class who came with City of Truro to the island. Because I've ridden on a lot of steam locomotives on the mainland, including the Flying Scotsman, and they've often had a Diesel helping them at the back of the trains. So since Diesel's just one in a long line of Diesel shunter classes, you could make the argument that there's probably another shunter Diesel that looks exactly like Diesel but is not Diesel. But if you look at it as just Devious Diesel, it is a continuity error. Gordon and the Famous Visitor is another one of those episodes that I rewatch countless times whenever I put it on the DVD. It's always been one of my favourite episodes because of how entertaining and funny it is. It's one that I definitely recommend rewatching if you haven't seen it for a good long time. You'll have a fun time seeing Gordon trying to be the centre of attention again. It's a nice little nod to the rivalry between the GWR and the LNER, and it's just an all-around funny episode. It's definitely worth a watch.